All right. Good evening. Well, actually, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're at the end of the year, and this is our last virtual workshop of the year with Life on Purpose LLC. Tonight, we have a special guest in the virtual building with us. We'll introduce her in just a second, but just giving you a brief introduction. This is Tangela Morris, licensed professional counselor with Life on Purpose LLC. And then we have
This is Tiffany DeWalt. I am a certified Christian life coach with Life on Purpose LLC.
and then our special guest is Miss Nzinga Benton, LPC with Open Door Counseling LLC. There we go. She's got a lot of different hats that she wears, but tonight she's wearing her counseling hat. And we are glad to have you here with us. We asked the question right before we came on, and I think it'd be a good way to just kind of segue right on in is to just say, how y'all doing?
That is a great question right there. People ask that question all the time and never expect to get the answer. So, Miss Nzinga, how are you doing?
Well, I am ready for 2024. I am excited about closing out this year because it has been a year. The year has been yearing, like life has been life
Life been life and huh?
yearing. So I am ready to start anew and just jumpstart some things, even in 2023. To be honest, I'm ready to jumpstart now and carry over into 2024. But I have been,
Yes.
how have you all been?
We are
Oh,
probably on the same path as you. I know I am. Just it's one of those, I will say it's been actually a very, very good year. Looking back this year, it's been very productive. It's been in forward motion. It's been a blessed year. A lot of learning experiences. So I'm looking forward to more of that, Yeah.
yeah. For me, I like to answer with my old school voice. I was doing mighty fine.
That's
I'm doing
good.
great. I concur with Tangi, where it has been a great year. It's been a productive year, meeting a lot of new people, a lot of new doors opening and, things that are segueing us into 2024. And so I'm excited about the coming year, but I'm also excited about closing out this year strong. So yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
Good, good. Nazinga, you got your hair all laid and glossed up. You looking good.
Yeah, and as always, it's a pretty lady over there.
Yes, yes, always glowing. So we're gonna do your bio, and then we're gonna do an icebreaker, and then we'll get into our discussion. So Miss Nzinga Benton, as you guys have already been formally introduced to, is a licensed professional counselor and the owner of Open Door Counseling LLC. Nzinga is on a mission to help educate her community and the church at large on the benefits of counseling and the importance of caring for the whole person. Nzinga's favorite scripture is John 14:12. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. Nzinga lives daily with the expectation of greater works. That is your life. That is definitely low. So when you say it has been a year, ma'am, John 14:12.
That's awesome. I just wrote a rhyme earlier this year with that verse in it. And it had something to do with life on purpose as well.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah. So, how long has open door counseling been around?
As open door counseling, maybe, look, I should know, 4 years. I think it's been 4 years.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned community and the church at large. Why community and the church?
Because I believe as a church, it's our job to go ye therefore. And so we have to embrace the community. And the community becomes us, we become the community. So I think if we just keep isolating ourselves from the church, then we're not reaching. Because everybody The people in church are the people in church. We're trying to reach the people who may not even want to go, or church is not something that, but we are the church. It's not a building. And so I believe that it's our responsibility to go therefore. And I can't isolate myself for just the people who come to the building and or the people who declare that they are the church. What about the unchurched?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's good, especially coming from a perspective of a counselor, a therapist. You have to be able to have a broad spectrum of abilities, and it doesn't lend itself to say, I only work for people who are believers. It lends itself to say, I work with believers and unbelievers. But however, there are parts of what I do that come directly from the Lord.
That's right. Not to mention that all of the good things that are going on out there comes from the Father of lights. So that's good. That's to plant those seeds out there for the unchurched as well. That's good.
Good. Okay. And look, that wasn't even the plans. That was a good question just to kind of go right into our icebreaker. So here's our icebreaker. Rate your stress level on a scale of 1 to 10. And then once you rate it, why did you choose your rating?
Mm.
And so while you guys are thinking, some people may be in our virtual chat listening in. So if you want to add in your answer in the virtual chat, please add in rate your stress level currently on a scale of 1 to 10, and then why did you choose your rating?
And 10 being like really
Good question.
high.
10
stress
being
level.
and 1 being really low. No zeros, no 11s, no 100s. 1 through 10.
Mm. You want to go, Nzinga, before I go?
I'll go. My first thought when you said it was 5. And then I went to 7, but I went to 5 and I went back to 5 because what I've learned, the way I live life, and I do not tell anybody to live this way, but I own this is me. I don't know what high stress, like I think I live in perpetual high stress. So I don't know what stress is, because stress is, if that even makes sense. It's like that's how I don't know if I could function if it wasn't stressful, or what is a manageable or appropriate stress, because I just live in this, I gotta go and I gotta move. So I say 5 because I'm like, I am there. I am someone else probably peek into my life and say, oh, that's 100. Live this way so long, even when I try to vacation, my mind is still, so that is something I'm working on, but I would just say 5 because I think I stay in a perpetual space of like stress function. Like it's my fuel.
So would you say, like you're saying, like it's at a 5 because it doesn't necessarily stress you out where you're ready to like quit, but then at the same time, there is a level to it because you are in perpetual motion in life at the same time. So there's something there, but it's not to where you're knocking on the door of anxiety and depression and ready to quit kind of thing.
Today.
Gotcha. I know.
Today.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I going back to your bio, it just stood out to me with the greater works. I think that comes with the level of maybe what you're discussing, that perpetual stress, and we can get into it later about overcoming that or working through it, because some people do live lifestyles that would be considered high stress lifestyles to other people, but they've been equipped for it, in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for me, if describing it the way that you did, I guess that's how I would describe it for myself. I did actually sit down and think about what could possibly be stressing me in my life right now, the things that, we might be experiencing, any type of hurdles that we have to, figure out how to jump over and things like that. And like you said, if somebody else looked at it, it'd be like, that's 100. But I wouldn't say it's at 100. I would say that if it was another person looking at it, they would say maybe a 7.5, because I like to count my blessings and also see that there are people that are going through a whole lot worse, and it's a whole lot tougher with deadlines that I don't have, So sometimes I don't think it deserves the stress level. But at the same time, there is something there, things that have to get taken care of, things that, especially because I have a family with 2 children, young children. And so if certain things don't, pan out or don't work out, then it doesn't affect just me. So there's always going to be some level there. It's just, it does boil down to how we handle that stress. So
So
I
what's
guess
your
I was,
number
so I would say
current
I'm going to go
today?
above Nzinga and go with the 6.5 because I got the 2 kids in here. And that
Okay.
would.
Okay. Well, as of today, I think I'm good. My stress level is pretty low. So 1 being low, 10 being high, right? I would say mine right now is probably at a 2 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. Now, catch me tomorrow morning, Monday morning, hit the ground running. But
Yeah.
I've learned to, and I still have moments, but I've learned over time to compartmentalize. What I'm doing right now is in this moment, and this moment right now is not stressing me out, if that
Right.
makes sense, or is not contributing to my stress. So I've learned, how they say mindfulness or being in the moment. That is a very, very valuable tool to stress management. And, we'll get into anxiety. And I think learning to be in the moment helps me. If I stray away from the moment, or if I think too hard about what's going on around the moment, we didn't start on time, or we didn't do this, or we didn't do that, or then that's where my stress increases. But I said, let me just be in the moment. Let me go with the flow. And that helps me personally keep my stress levels low.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good.
So we're gonna respond to some of the chats. Hopefully there's some good responses. Once people put their answers in the chat, we'll be able to respond to them.
Yes. What is your stress numbers? We got Miss Nzinga Benton on here so we can get some clarity on some things and some ideas on how to get through that stress to get those numbers down and or maintained, get to a neutral point. So put it in the chat so we can chat about it.
Okay. Well, we're going to go into our discussion questions. We just have a few questions that we want to ask. Well, I say a few, but it's a little bit more than 3. So a few meaning some, and then we'll go there. So, Miss Nzinga, to you, in your words, can you describe what you believe anxiety and stress is? How would you put that in your words?
Mm.
So I was separating first, and then I'm gonna see how I can tie them back together. I think anxiety is a feeling of loss of control. And it doesn't mean that for me that it is loss of control. It's a feeling of loss of control. I think what anxiety does, it feels all these things in us, and we feel like I cannot control, I cannot do, but we can do. We just haven't gotten there. It's the feeling of, and so anxiety to me is that just continuous. I can't, or I'm always trying to get somewhere. I'm always behind the 8 ball. I feel like I never, can get where I need to get to. So this feeling that the world is moving and you're like, bum, ba, dum, dum, dum.
Right. Right.
And then stress to me, as it relates to anxiety, I put the two together. I feel like stress is that continuous thought of the things that you cannot do that lead to anxiety. Like they both connect with one another, because we get stressed out oftentimes because we feel that we're anxious, or we feel this anxiety around, I have to perform, I have to do, I have to go, I have to be present all the time. So the fact that I have to do that and I don't think that I can do that, now I'm stressed about it. Now I'm worried about it. Now I'm saying, I'm starting to speak these things and make them a part of me, versus staying in the space of anxiety where it is, I'm trying. Now that feeling is starting to take root. And so now it's impacting the things that I do. So now I'm stressed. So I can't, maybe I won't get out of the bed, or I won't perform, or I'll just underperform, or just do enough, because now I allow the stress to kind of pack up on, or that feeling of I can't get to it, to really halt us and stop us from moving. So yeah, I think together they are a perfect storm. and not storm, but they tag along. Like in the spirit world, we talk about the Christian world, we talk about grace and mercy are twins, and they always together. I think stress and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
they always
Mm-hmm.
another, and they walk together as well, hand in hand. When here comes one, likely here comes the other.
I mean, it sounds like to me like if you use the word ambition with the combination of stress, it equals anxiety. Because you have the ambition, you have the drive, you have the want to, maybe even the skill, but because things don't happen the way you envisioned it, sometimes we don't move out of the way and allow God to do what he's planned, for you. And because it doesn't look the way that you were expecting to look, how it looks, it becomes anxiety versus the ambition and the drive to do something. So that's pretty good.
I read a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but I thought it was a good sum of what anxiety could feel like people. But it was related to depression and anxiety, and it said depression stays focused on the past, and anxiety looks too far into the future instead of the right now. So a lot of anxiety is about things that haven't even happened yet,
Mm-hmm.
or things that get us riled up in our minds, anxious about what we anticipate is going to happen in our
Mm-hmm.
lives, in and around us, which brings me to our next question, because we want to describe the symptoms of anxiety. And one of them is fear or worry. Excessive worrying is one of those symptoms. What else would you add to the symptoms of anxiety?
Um, I think physically, I look at fidgeting. That is something that you'll see someone who, has the kind of always, yeah, fidgeting, excessive talking can be bad. So someone's
Yes.
talking fast, physical movement, those kinds of things I think about when a symptom of anxiety, when I see pacing, see someone, kind of going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Symptoms that we see clinically even, and that when we start seeing clamming, your hands feeling clammy, you feeling like you just can't, a lot of it for me, I see a lot of the physical, and then of course, like I said, that talking real fast, repetitive in their speaking, can't seem to get your words out. You say the same thing over and over again, but it's different. But it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like you always trying to catch up, you're trying to get there. Like you said, I think that was a great quote um about anxiety as it relates to depression, but still anxiety, that's it. Like you trying to go over there and you here, and there might not even happen. Like we're anxious about what we feel and or think may happen or may not be happening or may not happen.
The unknown.
The unknown.
The unknown. I have a client in my past that she was adopted. And I used to, when I would work with her, she would talk so fast, just like you said. She would just and have something to say with a comment for everything. And it's almost like she wanted to not hear what was going on in her own head. And in real life, she was adopted. She's in her 50s. She never married, never had any children. And it was her and a brother that were adopted. And they were adopted by an aunt and an uncle that were already elder. So they ended up passing away. And then her brother suddenly passed away. And suddenly she found herself being the only person of her bloodline in the world. No cousins, no other aunts, uncles, grandparents, or anything. And so it was almost like she's just rattling off just so that she doesn't have to hear what's happening in her head and doesn't have to think about what what her real life looks like to her. Sometimes it's just about what you're going through, not necessarily about what you're trying to do, but the unknown. I don't know what this life is going to bring. I'm here by myself. I got to make friends, my family, and so on and so forth.
That sounds like a little more than anxiety, but definitely anxiety is contributing to
Mm-hmm.
what was going on with that person. So there's a worksheet called Anxiety Igniting Thoughts, and it just lists different things that ignite that anxiety within us. One of them is pessimism, like always being pessimistic. I said worry earlier. Obsessive thinking. I think that's what you kind of described, like somebody, well, if she allows her thoughts to be obsessive.
Right.
Perfectionism, always trying to things to be perfect. Um, Catastrophizing. I'm trying to make sure I said that word right. Catastrophic thinking, like something
Yeah.
bad is gonna always happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why you got to be careful with your words. If it's not one thing, it's another. If it doesn't rain, it's gonna pour. You gotta be careful with those
Yeah.
words. Yeah.
We got to go back on the train. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Remember them back in the day.
Guilt and shame.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the few things that they said. I think a lot of people don't realize when they're experiencing anxiety. Like if you're not a normally anxious person, you can still experience anxiety. It can hit you in some ways that maybe you didn't realize was hitting you, and I think that's where that stress comes in at, where you said earlier, Nzinga, that they kind of are brother and sister, or maybe sister and sister, or brother and brother. They twins. They related to each other in some kind of way, because stress can ignite that anxiety. You're stressed about something, so then you obsessively think about it, or you worry about it, or so then you begin to feel it physically in your body. And then those physical symptoms are sometimes what we don't realize, because it can make us sick. It can make our heart not well. It can give us headaches. It can make our heart beat fast. It can make us sweat. Y'all have been nervous and you start sweating, you know? So it's a lot of different things that say, you know what, I'm anxious.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the stress can actually turn your muscles like rock hard, because you're so tense in your shoulders and your neck. It'll turn your muscles into rocks, and you think that's a bone. No, that's actually tough muscle because of your stress that you've tensed it up and locked it up like that. So definitely the body, it manifests.
So, have either of you had any experiences with anxiety? Maybe not a diagnosis or anything, but just feeling anxious about something. And then if so, what were some of your symptoms?
Well, I can speak, I have, and I am not ashamed to say, even as a diagnosis, I do know that is something that I do have, or have actively been diagnosed with at a time with anxiety. And so for me, it shows up in, constantly doing, like, just not, my mind is constantly racing. It's hard to, sleep. I've gotten a whole lot better, but I've had challenges with sleeping. Perfectionism. Like when you said it, I was like, perfectionism. And, just that constant drive, like my mind just, it's like constant going, constant going. Because at first I was like, I have ADD, like that's all it is. Like, I'm just, and then I started, kind of digging a little deeper. And in my therapeutic session, it was like, oh wait, no, it's anxiety.
Mm.
And then I get where it comes from. There's some little girl things of this desire to be, to make sure I do it right, to make sure I, and no one ever put that pressure, as the oldest, I think I put it on myself. It's something that I've kind of learned too, that I just put that on myself, that I need to be the big sister. I need to be the example. So I cannot fail. So I need to do these things right. These things have to be right. So that, I would say, though, the symptom of perfectionism, even catastrophic thinking, like it's not going to work. And so it has stifled me in a lot of spaces where I didn't go after the things, because I was afraid of success and failure. That's the failure side of things, and didn't give success a chance. But then a part of me was like, well, what if you are successful? How are you gonna manage this? This is gonna be too much. Right. And so I would say that those are even, at times those thoughts still happen, that, that kind of, repetitive, keep going kind of way of, like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. That worry has been something that I will own today. I still struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it was about sleeping. Mine, like you said, the wheels are turning all the time, thinking like new ideas come, thinking about what you have to take care of with, and it might be something as small as what bills are due. What is my day going to look like tomorrow, even though it's time for bed and I should be resting and, not even worried about that. I'm thinking about what tomorrow is going to look like, and who I got to deal with the next day. So it's almost like constantly talking to myself, consciously talking to myself about everything that needs to get done. And then other times where you think about, like we do a lot of performing and stuff like that. And then, what does it look like? What do I look like? What is, how is this going to go? What do other people see? Because I like to see what other people see. But one thing that I learned about myself is I get dressed in a mirror, but once I leave that mirror, you can't see yourself anymore. It's your presentation to the rest of the world. And so, I always wonder, what do I look like when I'm doing this or that? And, you can only wait for feedback a lot of the time. So you have to, that's what causes the anxiety. You thinking about what that feedback is going to sound like, and what, you hear what they say about other people and what they did. And then you start comparing yourself to what other people done. So yeah, you see how I'm talking, and the wheels are going, that's what it sounds like in my head. So yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah, I think it just shows that I think we all probably, I think most people have experienced some level of anxiousness. Now, 10 years ago, I probably would have answered that question different. But I think with the way that the world is, as well as we as humans are, we do experience some levels of anxiousness. I think if we normalize it to some degree, it will be able to bring more understanding. Like, okay, we all have moments of the unknown. We all experience the unknown. Nobody can really know everything that's going to happen all the time. And it could be a lot of scary things out there. And you mentioned fear of failure, fear of, success, kind of thing. For me, I think it hit me when I started gritting my teeth. That was one of my symptoms. I would drive and have a lot on my mind and be just gritting away. Why am I gritting my teeth? I didn't even know I had picked up that habit. To deal with stress, deal with anxiety in some kind of way, and it was just me not being outspoken, internalizing my feelings. And I'm naturally an analytical person. Logic has to make sense. So if it doesn't make sense, then it definitely has some possibility of stressing me out if I let it. And so if it don't make sense, it's gonna wreck my brain. But I had to overcome that, and I think again we'll get into the overcoming part, because there is help. Whether you do your self-help or you get help, it doesn't matter. You can help address these issues that you may be experiencing. Speaking of unknown, you must have read my notes, because my next question was on those fears of the unknown, fears of failure, fear of success. You mentioned that earlier. Why do you think those are fears, if you could rationalize it in some way? And what are some things that people need to be aware of regarding fear of failure, fear of success, fear of the unknown?
I think for some, like, use me as an example. Being the oldest, there's just like this, I gotta, that's where it comes from. I gotta do it right, and I gotta be right. But that's something I put on myself. Knowing that my parents were never like, hey, you better do this. But I do think for some it is that. It comes from, it can be family and friends and circle and spaces that they're in, that people have placed this expectation on them. Or sometimes we've just created it.
Well, let me ask real quick, because you do come from a family of excellence. And even though they may have not pressured you, do you see role modeling being a factor in that? Like, I see what they're doing, so maybe I gotta meet that.
Almost certainly. I do think, and I think that's where it was like indirect. It wasn't a direct, you gotta, but it was kind of, you see it around you. You see everyone doing well. You see, your mom.
You got
and for their family, my mom, even though she's the baby girl, she's the one, like, people look to her. Her family, they come to her. My dad, middle child, his family comes to him for advice so I saw it, right? Still see it. And so it's like, and then not only did I see that, people coming to them, and then I decide, or God decide, because I believe wholeheartedly it's a calling, that I am, to counsel and to be a minister. And it's like, wait, I can't, not like them, and so comparison, right? And I did it. So it would, but the enemy of comparison showed up. And so it's like, well, I got to do it as good or better. So that for me, so, the fact that you brought it up, yes, that's kind of where some of it came from, like an indirect. And so it, here I am. I created this space in my mind that I gotta be successful. And I think one of the challenges is too that I define success based upon what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it. And that's, one of the things for my clients when we talk about, I'm like, you successfully woke up this morning, right? You successfully knew your shirt different from your pants, different from your socks. Make it about money and about having things and about having status. And so that's, some of that retraining the brain that I'm even doing for myself. Like, you created what success looks like, where other people look at me. And one of the things I learned real quick with my family, we just did this family vacation. And so, I was talking to my dad. We had a serious conversation about just money and finances and all this thing. And I said, as kids, we didn't know the struggle because we just saw the evidence. Sense of success, and it was no wrongdoing of their own, but we didn't know that, yeah, we got these things for Christmas or for this, but you borrowed it from somebody, or you didn't, have this for yourself to make sure we have that. And that's one thing I support, even like these new age parents, like transparent parenting, because transparency could have saved a lot of our thinking. And they were being innocent. I don't think our families were trying to act like, because my parents both came from humble beginnings, but I think because they started doing things, they didn't want their children to feel the way they felt, which is what happens. I don't want my kids to feel like we can't do. So instead, I'm going to do, even though we may really can't do. Like the cycle. So someone has to break the cycle. They did it to not look or have us feel a way. And in return, we felt the ways, but now we're feeling like we got to keep doing until now. It's like, I'm breaking the cycle. Like, whoa. I get it now. Success equals a lot of sacrifice. And success doesn't necessarily mean, I'm learning now, I don't have to spend a dime to be successful. I don't have to make a dime to be successful. And so it's been a huge learning curve for me. But that's kind of like that whole, fear of success, fear of failure, kind of where it stemmed from. Just some of that thinking as kids that like, well, they're doing it, so I gotta do it. Like, what is the alternative? I gotta go to college. I gotta get a degree. And I gotta keep going to college. In the meantime, I'm racking up student loan bills, and somebody needs to wait, let's make it make sense. So, long answer to that question, but yes.
Thank you. And just a little insert, you guys. When I think Zoom don't want us all talking at the same time, so it kind of dulls one mic when another person is talking, or even when we laugh or something like that. So if we go on mute or get quiet, it's because of that, that kind of thing. So just a little insert, because I know that the people that are listening, they don't want to miss everything that you got saying. So that was good though. So how would you describe that in the same way to your clients? The fear of failure and success, because sometimes they'll come in. This is my experience with clients, and you don't get that's the fear that's going on. You get other stuff, other parts of the story, and then you begin to peel back the layer. Oh, you're afraid to succeed. You're afraid you might self-sabotage. You might, or you think you're gonna mess this up before you even get your hands on it because you never had this before. Or you think, so it's these grandiose thoughts that we have, that we imagine things to be worse than what the experience might actually be. That's that fear of failure. Or it might be too much for us to handle. That's that fear of success. Yeah.
Like she said, the lack of control too.
Yeah. And to your point, I do, like with clients, same thing. That's been my same experience. Like, you hear it, but you're like, they don't hear it yet. And so I'm like, okay, so you ask those questions or you kind of get them to keep talking. And then you're like, so it sounds like, so I wonder what happened if you, I never thought about doing it. Oh, so I'm wondering, has there been a fear of or a hesitation to do, because of that, that unknown. You don't know what next will look like or what's behind that door, or you're fearful that you will fail or fearful that you even would be successful and wouldn't even know how to handle the success. So it's the same, like kind of helping them peel back the layers, because a lot of people, even for me, that was my personal experience. You never could have told me that I was fear of failing and or succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Just said that to me, I would have been like, no, because I'm okay. Like, I'm a girl. Like, I'm a regular old human. Like, if I don't work, I don't work. Like, you tell yourself that. And then it's like, but why aren't you doing it? And, I had to sit with it and lo and behold, realize that it's that fear factor.
Yeah.
That's
I think that
interesting.
look ahead and see too much. Imagine some people start a little bit later in life, or they have big ambitions and don't realize how much they have to do in order to reach that. So it looks like a lot of stuff ahead of them, which will give you an anxiety too, because if you see too much ahead of you, and they say that that's a lot of what people with autism experience is, if you give them 10 math problems, it looks like 100 to them. And so it gives them anxiety, and they sometimes have meltdowns because of that. And I think that it does not necessarily mean someone has to have autism for that to happen, because that happens with all of us. And it's like, oh, I want to be a counselor. And then you think about all of the school that you have to go through. And then once you do get in school and they tell you, oh, you need some more school for this, that, I think that that's another way that people fear, and have lack of control. It's, I can't control. Like, once I decide I wanted to be a counselor, I want to be a counselor next year. Not, a lack of control of how it's going to go and too much ahead of them.
That's good. What are some misconceptions about anxiety? Maybe there's some misunderstandings.
Um, I think one of the biggest things, and that's why I was so transparent even about mine, is that it can't happen to me, or that's it's this bad thing, it's debilitating. When people hear anxiety, they think about, sometimes people marry anxiety with panic attacks, and so they make them the same. I hear that often, and I'm like, no, they're not the same. Someone who has anxiety and or who's anxious could potentially have a panic attack, but it doesn't mean that because you're anxious, you're going to have one, or because you have panic attacks that you have anxiety. So I think that's a misconception, because I hear them often in the same, and I'm like, they're actually two different diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, because like, I guess it would be a different type, just different forms of anxiety. It also depends on what you're having anxieties about. The panic attack, that is just, it is a lack of control of a situation, but what is the situation? What is actually happening that you just can't catch up to your breaths in order to, maintain yourself. And then there's the anxiety. Some anxieties just make you tuck off into a closet somewhere. Then, don't leave the house, don't answer the phone, don't, just literally stop participating in life. So that's a good one.
And I'm glad you brought that out, because I think a lot of people, I've noticed, especially, pandemic brought on a lot of things, but post pandemic, a lot of people have had panic attacks, and as well as anxiety, or a combination of the two. You definitely see a lot more people that are anxious. That fear is a different level of fear than a lot of people I know, at least here in America. Just, they call it first world problems, but it's like things that people in other countries that might be considered third world, it's nothing to them, because things could be worse. But for here, it's like, oh my God, let's panic. I'm afraid, I'm overly afraid, I don't want to go outside, I don't want to go out the house, like I don't want to live anymore to this degree, because it's just too much for me. It's interesting how our environment can contribute in some ways, or maybe ignite, give give rise to what potentially can be anxiety. you know, the environment that we live in, the nature of what we live in. You know, certain cultures that have less usually don't have, they have, you won't see the anxiety show because they've already been dealing with stressors.
They
So
look
like I
happy.
said, it's nothing.
You know, I always see pictures of or video footage of kids in Africa, families in Africa that are in the poorer state, and you know, having to go miles to get water and dirt homes, and I mean, no shoes, you know, just clothes that probably made, you know, their way over to them from the United States or somewhere, you know. And these people are smiling, they're happy for whatever they can receive. They're living in those conditions like, you know, this is what life is. And they don't have the same stress, you know, that we have. But I think that we have a fear. I know that I feel like people in the United States of America who've born and raised here have a level of anxiety and fear of ending up in, you know, with less
Mm,
things and resources and so on and so forth. And also, we
that's
hold each
good.
other on a pedestal where, you know, our success levels, they speak. Our clothing attire speaks to our success, how we maintain ourselves, you know, through hygiene, what types of cars we drive, what types of jobs we have. All of those things speak to our success and where we are. And so if we're not able to present that to the world, then they see us, we feel like we're headed down to where those people are that are less fortunate, although they're not stressed out about it. But we have the fear of being in that position, you know.
That's really good. Because that is, and that it, to me, it also has me think about social media, like the depiction of what life, good life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, first world problems. I think that's a appropriate way to call it. Because it is, we have, like you said, Tiffany, like we have this, we can't be like that. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, I would rather what I'm learning. I would rather be rich in love,
Mm-hmm.
barefoot, with,
Yes.
because there's nothing like it. Because what I've learned is the material things profit me absolutely nothing. They don't do anything for me. You put it on, and then you like, now what? Like if you and if we think about, and I know not, you know, just to hit there real quick, but when we think about a lot of celebrities who are taking their lives, they have everything. Air quote. They have the things, and it's still not enough, which suggests to us we can learn from third world countries. We can learn from those who are just grateful to have, like, even in some of the work that I've done doing community-based counseling, when I would go to some of those neighborhoods, you know, for me, I'm like, oh, but when I tell you it was love,
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point where I love going to the community. I mean, I would be like, hey, y'all gonna watch my car while I'm in here? And they
Mm-hmm.
got you, we're gonna watch your car. Okay, cool. Let me walk around, let me sit on the floor, let me be in the space, because I'm like, it ain't killing them, it ain't gonna kill me. I can get dirty, I can get, you know, certain things I had, you know, I don't like a lot of critters, but I'm like, you know what? They ain't gonna kill me. Let me just get in here and get a piece of what they're enjoying, and that is just being rich in life. So I think that is a great point about, you know, first world, third world problems.
Mm-hmm.
I also think
Right.
about, though, I think also too that people have a misconception about anxiety and panic disorders, because you can have anxiety and not have an anxiety disorder. You can have panic attacks and not have a panic disorder. And I want to be clear on that too, because a lot of people, especially people new into the mental health, when they hear it, they're like, oh yeah, they have anxiety disorder. You know, I hear a lot, oftentimes people will throw out stuff, you know, I have OCD. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you may just like to put certain things certain ways, or I have, no, you don't. And so I think it's important to say, even with a disorder, which is nothing wrong with it, because I have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. But to just say too that there is a line where you can have anxiety and not have an anxiety disorder.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad that you, because we're not trying to diagnose anybody on this segment. Um, it's important to also help people understand how do you even get to the point of a diagnosis if that's what's going on. You got to see professional help. You don't want to diagnose yourself. You don't want to have your mom or your friend who you talk to on the phone all the time diagnose you, because there are certain tests and measures that will help. And a diagnosis really only supports course of treatment. That's what it's there for. It's not to label you. It's not to say, oh, you have this, something that you were born with. Not to that degree. It's something that, thank God that anxiety is something that can be treated in some ways. And then, like we said earlier, it doesn't always have to be treated with professional help. But at least if you want to know if there's a formal diagnosis, maybe it's unmanageable. Maybe you've had symptoms going on for a long time and you just haven't been able to shake them. Maybe the self-help books didn't help you in some way that you thought that they would. Maybe you can't stop crying, or you can't stop, fidgeting or things like that. Or can't, then yes, professional support may be there to help. And it's okay if at least some people are afraid to know. At least if you get the help that you need, and get the formal diagnosis that you need, at least that way you'll know what to do and how to address it. Which brings me to my next question. What are your thoughts on medication?
A proponent of medication. I used to be totally against it. Before, probably early in my career, and I won't say totally against it, but I was just like, I don't know, medicine. I've had to, and I've done this a whole lot lately, to liken mental health with physical health, like just health being health. And so one of the things I've learned is with certain diagnoses, there are actual chemical imbalances and things that are happening in the physical body. And so oftentimes, like as simple as if we have a headache, many people are going to take Tylenol, Motrin, they're going to take something for it. And those who are into holistic medication, they're going to do either way, you're going to do something about it. And so I start realizing that it is just as simple. In some sense, is like, certain medications help to support that chemical imbalance or help to support those things, where what I've trained or taught to my clients around is your behaviors and your thoughts are your thoughts and your behaviors. Now, what medication is change your thoughts and your behaviors. What it will do is slow your brain down so you can think about what you're going to do before you do it. And so I oftentimes talk it to them that way, like, it's not going to all of a sudden make you a new person. Slow some things down, and you got to find the right regimen that works for you. And for some, medication may not be it. I have some clients who took and take the holistic, route, and I'm okay either way. I think that when it comes to medication, it's individual. It is the person. I do not believe that any medication should be taken in isolation. That if you are going to take medication, you also need to be seeking counseling and having it regularly. Because just like with a headache, if I have a headache every night and I take Tylenol every night, but I never go find out why I keep getting a headache, I could be dying on the inside and not knowing, because now I'm getting something that just kind of covers. And so I always explain that to clients, like medication kind of covers, it gives you a path and support, but you still got some work to do. You need to kind of process things that cause the anger, because you're going to be angry, but you can't keep slashing people's tires, right? Or you can't cuss out everybody every day. So we got to come up with some medication. Ain't going to make you stop cussing people out or stop slashing tires. So you still have to have therapy that supports the cause of the symptoms, because I feel like kind of helps to cover, so to speak, those symptoms, and that's that symptomatic behavior that you may have based upon whatever the diagnosis. So I think it's individualized. B, I think it can help when done right, with the right psychiatrist, with the right therapeutic team, because you just cannot take the medication and just say okay. And I think that's what society is doing. They just take, and you're gonna be all right. And nobody's talking about the work that you have to do, like the infamous weight loss drugs that are now the big thing now. But what people forget is, or don't know or realize, when you stop taking them, if you haven't done the work, all that weight you just lost, you're going to gain again because it suppresses your appetite. So you ain't eating like you normally would eat. Your cravings, if not 10 times worse. And so I think we have to be very careful about throwing medication at things without doing our homework and making sure this is the right thing for me and that I'm doing the right thing along with it so that I can support myself and I'm still doing the work and not just, well, let me pop this pill.
That's good. That's good. I agree. And I love when a client comes to me and says, I'm trying to work through this without medication. I've had medication for years, but now I want to try this without medication. Now that's a charge to our therapist. Now it's like, okay, now you're dealing with somebody who dealt with this for years with medication, and now they're saying that they don't want to have medication, and you're charged with helping them. So for me personally, that gives me that oomph that says, okay, I need to step it up and make sure that this person gets what they're coming here to ask for sure. Not that I don't do that for the other clients, but you're dealing with somebody who for years have thought medication was going to remove it helped them manage it, but now they're not taking the medication and they really need something in addition to that, because maybe during those years that they were taking the medication, they weren't seeking the therapy that they needed. And now they're trying to do this on their own, Yeah. Which brings me to my next question. Oh, wait, you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I want to respond to that, as a life coach, because my question is, at what point is where would you feel content in your life? Because I think it's a lack of contentment, number one, but I also think it's mental fitness that they need to learn how to slow their minds down. What is triggering these chemical imbalances? What releases the chemical into your brain to make you react the way that you do? Because like you said, anxiety and depression, if those things are present, those could be triggers. And so what is it that as a life coach, I would want to know what would make you content? Because like we were talking about the third world country versus first world country, although we're all in our different positions here and we're all comfortable, we're not wondering where our next meal is going to come from. We have a roof over our head. We got some nice clothes, and we also pride ourselves in being able to dress differently every day. So we have a lot to be thankful for, but where is the level of contentment? What do you have to reach, the plateau that you have to reach in order to be content? And I think that if people really understood where their contentment lies and then understood what they have to do to reach that contentment, that the anxieties and things can kind of waver back. Don't expect perfection all the time. Don't expect everything to go your way all the time, because we're spoiled in that way as well. We don't like when, we oversleep because the alarm didn't wake up, or we don't like to, be in traffic and it caused us to be late for work. I mean, I've seen people very angry. I mean, screaming to the top of their lungs because they ran up on a car that was stalled out and causing traffic, like it was that person's fault. So it's more so about controlling your contentment. Where, what, if I can't make it to work on time, what you gonna do? What is that? What else can you do? Being angry is doing nothing but harming yourself, because it's causing the stress and anxiety and depression and the lack of contentment and so on and so forth. Which next thing is you take that attitude into your workplace, you take that attitude to your family, to your church family, to wherever, the grocery store. Now you're reacting against other people. And so I think that exercising the mind, practicing, reaching small goals, little goals, actually planning things out, learning how to take step by step, one day at a time is what we're told, is the way that we have to. Even if you're going to be on medication, I'm not a big fan. I'm more of a holistic approach myself, but I don't understand the medicine 100%. So I can't really tell somebody, don't do this, try it this way, but don't do it without doing the exercise, the mental exercises, little things. Even if you have to make a to-do list for your day and go off of that, so now you're not trying to think, did I do this or did I do that? And haven't I done this? And who did I see? And did I talk to? You don't have all of that that other stuff that's crumbled up into your head like a balled up piece of paper. Open it up, smooth it out, and do one thing at a time. Exercise the brain along with the medication and wean yourself off. Because a lot of people, like Tangela said, people like to just come and say, I'm no more medication. I did that for years. Well, it was probably doing some type of help for you to get to this point. For you to make it right here where you're talking to me about it, you've gotten to this point, with medication. So I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, just cut that out. This is what we're going to do. But let's do that and see if we can start weaning you off of it. And then your doctor takes you on to lower doses until you don't need it anymore.
That's good. Yeah. Some people do ask for alternatives, like some type of supplement. So I know ashwagandha has been kind of trickling over into, I don't know if you guys heard of ashwagandha, into something a little bit more natural. It's a root, and they're saying that it helps with stress and anxiety, and help people sleep better. So if there is something that is made from Mother Earth, God given, why not? Maybe there is, something to that. So I've not tried ashwagandha. I've known other people to try it, and they actually do find it's beneficial to them. But then there's also other like herbal teas that are calming teas. There's aromatherapy. I'm a big fan of eucalyptus as well as lavender, chamomile. So
yeah,
people can use.
Did you
broke
try
up? What you say?
Andre 3000's new album where he's playing the flute, where I noticed a lot of people under the comments were saying how it helped them reduce stress, that their whole household is calmer now because they play his music. So even music like massage therapy music and things like that.
Yeah. So when you think about like a person actually going to a therapist, what does treatment look like? Does it look like weekly sessions, every other week? Depends on what's going on, those type of things.
So I definitely say, post assessment, like to determine like how debilitating is the anxiety and or stress and or whatever it is. Like, how is it taking away? Because if it is extremely where you're not hardly getting out and doing anything, or you get nothing accomplished because you're thinking about all these other things, that sounds like a weekly. So I always kind of see where they are, but then seeing where they are, weekly sessions for some heightens anxiety. So, and I may know that as a professional that they need weekly. I also know that the thought of sessions are triggering. So
listen, weekly sessions sometimes heighten the therapist's anxiety. We got to talk with this high stress every week, girl. I just seen you. We go by fast.
You are so right about it. But I definitely think if it's an extreme case or, where it is debilitating and is impacting your work life, home life, school life, whatever your life, that weekly probably will be helpful. And I usually, just like with medication, wean my clients as we continue to grow. We'll go to every other week. We'll go to once a month. Bi-monthly, we'll do those things. And some may start, bi-weekly. But I think it really just depends on how it's impacting their day-to-day, and being very mindful with anxiety clients that therapist does heighten, therapy rather in general heightens their anxiety. So playing around with that. So a lot of them, I will say, start off every other week. Even though I think, like I said, we need it weekly, I'll start off just every other week because I want to be in tune with what's comfortable for them too. Like, this is what I believe. And I also see how this anxiety impacts that. Because what'll happen, they don't do what they want to do. So you can schedule weekly. They're going to cancel every other week anyways. If not every 2 weeks, something came up. Oh, so let me go.
I had a lot on my mind. Yep. I got you.
Do every other week, right? So yeah, just being able to determine based upon where they are with their anxiety and stress, how to navigate that for them.
And I want to say too, if you're experiencing stress but you're not experiencing anxiety, you can still come to therapy for stress management. That's good for you too. Usually you're going to get some tips and some recommendations from your therapist that are going to help you, but you're going to have to do the work. Like, it's important to do the work. Like, you can come in and talk all you want, but if you're not doing any work, for those, let's say you do come to your therapist in those at 1 hour out of however many hours are in 7 days, you still got all of those other hours of your week to deal with yourself. So it's good for you to be able to put some things in place. So one of the things that I like to do is kind of create a building block for my clients where they begin to put some things into practice, whatever they feel like works for them. Starting your morning off right is a big one for me. How does your mindset, what's your mindset when you get up in the morning? Because I've been there where my mindset starts with all of the problems that I got to address for the day. We're not going to start our day like that, because that's going to set the tone for the rest of the day. If we can get it broken down to how you start your day, then we'll increase our success in being able to manage our anxiousness throughout the rest of the day. That's just that's my way of, handling those things. And they usually tune in, whether it's journaling, praying, meditating, deep breathing, drinking a cup of coffee, setting a healthy morning routine. Is something for them to have that they feel like they have control of and are in control of, and it slows them down a little bit so that they feel like they can tackle the rest of the day.
I like to have little projects. Like for me personally, I have what's called my relaxation station. Tangi knows what I'm talking about, but I have a nice, comfortable chair that I can sit down in. It's next to my French doors so I can see outside. I have plants that I take care of. And I mean, a lot of species of plants. And I'm sort of new to that, but it relaxes me to literally just get away from myself for a moment and look at, oh, this plant's got a new leaf, or this plant's going to be blooming soon, or I can see the drooping. I like all the plants I've learned have different personalities. So it's almost like I'm getting more in tune with nature, but also learning how to deal with characteristics of plants, which in turn will help me deal with the characteristics of people as well. When the plant is doing certain things, I know that it's requiring something. If it's requiring water or fertilizing or some more sunlight or position needs to be turned, things of that nature, it's the same thing for people. So I'm learning how to just take a breather, go away from life for a moment and relax within.
Take a breather. Yes.
To make a space. We have prayer closets, just your place that you go to. And I know sometimes the guys like to go to the bathroom and you think they're in there a long time doing something, but usually that's their getaway spot, to where they get away from it all for a moment, and sometimes I'll go to the bathroom and just sit in there with the lights off, and meditate and pray and think about things and just sometimes you have to create ways that you can get away from even yourself.
I like that. Reading a book, sitting in a quiet place. What's your go-to for just kind of calming down, Miss Nzinga?
One of mine, it was actually a place that I realized that it heightens my anxiety is at its highest. But now I've learned to utilize it to be at its lowest is in my car. What I learned, I'm recently diagnosed with carpal tunnel. And so I'm like, I didn't type a lot. I don't type a lot. I probably type now more than I ever have. But one day I caught myself gripping the steering wheel super hard.
That happened in Atlanta now.
Thinking about, like, when I drive, I'm not thinking consciously that I'm thinking about traffic or but that's just where my stress lies. So it has resulted in me having carpal tunnel. Because the doctor's like, because I was like, well, what can, as we were going through all these things, and I was like, I do. So it happens to also be the place where I find peace. So I've started working on so you get in my car, 9 out of 10 times you're not gonna hear anything. As much as I love music and love singing, I don't play a single sound most times in my car.
That's a good one.
Because usually I'm going somewhere or coming from somewhere. And so I'm like, you know what? And I try to be more intentional about what I'm thinking when I'm going there, because usually it used to be, which is where I learned a lot of that stress was, okay, I know I got to go into this building. I'm going to hear all this stuff. I got to deal with this. I'm thinking about the day. I'm already creating, what I started realizing was the day never turned out as bad as that whole scene that I painted. And so I started getting into that. Well, yesterday wasn't what you thought it was going to be, and the day before that wasn't what you thought it was going, and so just woosah. And so the car is just that silent moment. I will listen to the Bible app sometimes. I might listen to a self-help book. I might listen to absolutely nothing. And I'm intentional about focusing on anything. If I do, it's about gratitude. Like, today is going to be an amazing day. What am I going to eat today? Oh, what do I have? Like this, just the most frivolous, not even thinking about what's going, because I'm like, there's a saying that tomorrow and today, for that matter, will take care of itself. And we're trying to take care of something that has already taken care of and or is taking care of itself. Today is today, whether today or not. Today is today. And so today got today covered. And so that is my go-to, kind of recognizing those things, focusing on the things that I'm grateful for. Even having my therapeutic sessions, I do every other week, sometimes once a month. But having that moment to just kind of get it all out in an uninterrupted space where I can hear myself. The one thing I love about my therapist is my therapist that's what he does. Like, he just gives me space to figure it out, because he knows how to be a therapist for therapists, because we're a special breed of people as a client. And so he knows how to be so he sits and he may throw something at me, and then here I go. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm doing it. And so I would say that. So my car, that, and then just, being in my house by myself in silence is one of the best experiences. I'm like, oh,
I'm coming over your house.
Silence is, that's the thing right there. Once I learned how to be in silence and be content, some people ask, how do you get there? How do you do that? I can't. I gotta have the TV on. I gotta have this on. I gotta have that on. Because, but I think internally you have to learn how to just kind of learn how to be quiet on the inside. They think that means that you're not thinking about anything. No, I'm still thinking about stuff, but it's from a quiet place, not a hectic or chaotic place. Once I learned how to be quiet on the inside, then I could silence the noise on the outside. I don't have to have the TV on. I don't have to have anything on. Sometimes I don't even think about, sometimes noise is too much, Let that be too much versus the silence. Let me say it like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that while Nzinga was talking about, turning the music off and things. And because we have what I call mental fillers, fill the space in your head, because we're used to hearing ourselves talk and those wheels turning like we were talking about earlier. And so if the wheels are not turning, we turn on music. We tend to listen to sermons or some podcast. We literally have to fill the space in our heads with something going on. But I think it's an art. It's an art to be able to erase all of the noise and be able to be content with the silence, with nothing. And few years back, this is probably closer to 20 years ago though, but I used to have a problem falling asleep at night because of those wheels turning. And I would sometimes only have 15 more minutes of sleep before, and I'll fall asleep in that 15 minutes, but I would not be able to fall asleep at night. And so eventually, long story short, I began to meditate on God. I was imagining that I was laying in the palm of his hand. I erased. And then the other thing is, I never went into darkness. I always imagined that I was in light versus darkness. And I would lay in the palm of his big old hand. His hand was huge and I was tiny and comfortable in there, and he would rock me there. And eventually, where it used to take me hours to fall asleep, it turned into, sometimes I would just fall asleep and didn't even know that I was asleep, and would wake up the next morning like the people on the detergent commercials when the windows open and because the mental filler, I pushed all of that out. When a thought would try to creep into my mind, I would literally push it out. Nope, I'm thinking about nothing. I'm thinking about nothing. You cannot have that space in my head, is what I would do. Don't put in the mental fillers. We have to sleep with white noise now. We have to sleep with lullabies or rain going or thunderstorms or birds chirping. We have to have all of those things in order to calm ourselves down because they're mental fillers. But follow the art of silence. Learn how to be in your space, which is your body, without noise. It's okay.
That's good. That's good. We're gonna have to do another workshop on how to get good sleep. That's another thing people struggle with, because if you ain't sleeping good, then yeah, you're gonna struggle a little with anxious feelings and anxious thoughts throughout the day, because you didn't get good rest. So
Right.
well, we gotta wrap up, but we appreciate you, Miss Nzinga Benton. Now, is it Miss or is it Doctor yet?
Yes, we
Still,
work
still okay, headed to Doctor.
a new route now. We had to pivot. We're
In due
pivoting.
time. Okay, okay. In whatever time that God has, but nevertheless, Miss the beautiful. Do you have anything that you want to add that we didn't get to say as we get ready to wrap up?
No, I thought this was an amazing conversation. So I do want to just say, I guess I said no, then I'll say something. But I do want to just thank you both for creating such a platform to have this conversation, to have these conversations, to have these workshops. So I do want to say that I even in this short time got a lot, like, Tiffany saying, you and your words, mental fillers. I can't remember something else you said. I call them, I'm people writing stuff down. So can come together. What is the scripture say? Come, let us reason together. And so we can reason together, iron sharpens iron. We can all walk away with something. I came in to give and I also received. So I do want to just thank you all for that and for this platform, getting the word out and having these conversations. So it's been a pleasure.
Dang, thank you. Thank you. It's always good. Y'all don't know, listeners, that we go way back with Miss Nzinga. So we kind of started off kind of early in our counseling careers together. So, and I know I was in school in 2009 and got my license in 2012. So I know you came in around then, somewhere in there. So yeah.
2012 that I started, that I was in school.
Yeah, yeah. So you've supported Ladies in Full Effect, which is our organization over the years. People don't know you've been our what is it, designer? I can't think of the word. She
He was
dressed
our
us up, as you see, our stylist, y'all. So it's been an amazing journey. And we appreciate you so much, more than you probably would even know. We want to give some resources. Tiffany, I think you added in some resources for those listening journey. There's a book called Disruptive Thinking by T.D. Jakes. That's a good book. Dancing Through Life, Steps of Courage and Conviction by Candace Cameron Burr. I Heard God Laugh by Matthew Kelly. And then some YouTube videos. How do you navigate depression? And here's the thing about anxiety. And hopefully we can put those either in the chat or put them up for people to be able to access those.
Yes, that's those videos are Dr. Anita Phillips. I don't know if you all have heard her. Yes, she is something amazing when she explains and breaks how the body works and the mind works and the spirit works all together. And so I thought those would be great videos for everybody.
Good. I like that. I like her. She's a psychologist as well as a minister. So.
Yes, she is. And she has a great breakdown. She even breaks down the tree of life and how it relates to us in our lives from mentally, spiritually, and physically. So she's a great person. We put a couple of videos there, but if you just go ahead and follow some of the things that she's been doing, you're going to get a plethora of great things, great information, and great ways to help add on to yourself, and then also to take out all of the gunk.
That's good. I wanted to point out two things and then we'll close out. You said it earlier, Nzinga. You said you write down things that you're grateful for. Keeping a gratitude journal is a great way to keep things into perspective in our lives when the going gets tough. We also hinted on people having the desire to feel the need to be in control. And sometimes there are some things that's inevitable. You will not be able to be in control. And you might begin to feel like you're losing control. And so the key response to that is to let it go. Let it go. It's probably falling apart anyway. Sometimes we want to hold on to stuff that's already fallen apart. And once we let it go, we realize, you know what? It wasn't even meant to hold on to in the first place. So I wanted to end with that and want to encourage everybody that's listening. You know, this is today officially when this airs is going to be December 30th. We are 2 days into the new year, 2024. And so make it your point to go into 2024, managing some things better in your life, managing your stress, managing your anxiety, and hopefully, God willing, overcoming some of those things that are contributing to it so that you don't feel that pressure that you maybe felt all 2023 and prior years. All righty. Good job, ladies.
Thank you. And it's been great. It was a great conversation. And I like the gratitude journal, Tangi, because I think that you said to write down things that that people might have gone through that might have been, bothersome. But I think that we should also count our blessings, just have a journal of when good things happen. I met this new person today. I was able to accomplish that today. That's something that I don't think a lot of people do. We keep diaries, and it usually means the whole thing, but of life. But just to have a gratitude journal, to know daily, how even somebody with kids and their kids said something sweet to them that made them feel good with that day. Just write down those things that make you feel good. So if you're gonna fill your head with anything, fill it with great things.
And on that note, if all hearts and minds are clear.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
All right. Thank you all.